President Trump's attorney stuns nation with announcement about Comey tapes. Donald Trump knows one thing better than anyone else. Business and politics are a lot like reality television, and sometimes you have to keep people focused by leaving them hanging. It's obviously worked too. More people are focused on Trump's presidency than any other presidency in history. The lib mainstream media would have you believe that they're obsessed with Trump because he's such a danger. Fact is, they're being trolled, plain and simple. Trump has been in control this whole time, and he's still doing it masterfully. Because of if there's one thing this nation has forgotten in the past few days, it's lying James Comey and his slanders against the president. Luckily, all Trump has to do is promise to release those mysterious, quote, tapes of the Comey-Trump conversations, and everyone in the moronic press is once again fixated on the real problems in Washington: leakers, liars, and obstructionists. The Conservative Tribune reports. In an appearance on CBS Face the Nation Sunday, Jay Sekulow, President Donald Trump's attorney, said the president would address the existence of any tapes documenting conversations between himself and former FBI Director James Comey during the coming week. The possible existence of said tapes stems from a tweet from the president shortly after Comey's firing, in which he stated that the former bureau chief better hope that there are no tapes of our conversations before he starts leaking to the press. I'm guessing you need no reminder. Sekulow is talking about this particular Trump tweet. James Comey better hope that there are no tapes of our conversations before he starts leaking to the press. Luckily, all it takes for them to focus again is a little reality TV from the master. The Washington Free Beacon has the transcript. You seem to be hinting there are recordings of those conversations, ABC News reporter Jonathan Karl said. Trump replied, I will tell you, I'm not hinting anything. I'll tell you about it in a very short period of time. When will you tell us? In a very short period of time. Are there tapes, sir? You are going to be very disappointed when you hear the answer. Don't worry. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. Let's take a quick listen here.
I mean, I find it troubling, frankly, that that the special counsel is letting James Comey testify at all. Because if he's a witness that he's using in an investigation, why in the world would you put your witness up to be examined? And James Comey, let's face it, is not exactly the most credible witness. This is a guy that had to correct his testimony before the United States House and Senate on 3 separate occasions. And one of them was a very significant statement. He talked about tens of thousands of emails going from Huma Abedin's computer to Anthony Weiner's, only to find out, and this was during the election, only to find out it was less than a dozen. So he's not a credible witness, and he's discussing his testimony with the special counsel. I think this points to what we're going to see on Thursday, which is probably basically not much. I don't think there's going to be a lot he's going to be able to say, and James Comey's better be very careful on what he says, Shannon. Let me emphasize one last thing here. 18 U.S.C. 4 says, if you know of a crime being committed, you're a federal agent, and you do not report that to the authorities, which means for James Comey to walk across the street to the Department of Justice, you're committing a crime. So the fact is, if he felt he was being, there was an obstruction of justice, he had an obligation to formally report that. He did not. Case closed.
Yeah, and there are a lot of folks who say that's going to be one of the #1 questions that GOP senators have for him when he takes that seat on Thursday. Now, let me ask you about this. The FBI has declined to turn over any so-called Comey memos, if they exist.
Right.
They have been, reported through basically anonymous sources to this point. Current House Oversight Committee Chair Jason Chaffetz says he does think that Congress should be able to get to those because he considers them federal documents if they exist. What say you?
Well, I mean, they are federal documents if they exist, and I mean, James Comey didn't have any problem with his staff leaking it to the New York Times. And by the way, how did the staff get their hands on his private memos? I mean, I'd like to ask that fundamental question. How in the world did James Comey, then the FBI director, do a private memorandum, got it to his staff, and allowed that staff to leak it to a newspaper? I mean, I think that, and that while he's testifying and discussing his testimony with the special counsel, what doesn't look right here? Everything looks wrong. That's the truth. This whole thing is a setup. I'm afraid to say that the memos would be self-serving at best. May not exist at worst. But what they're doing is trying to paint a picture here. And the left better be very, very careful. Because if I was on that committee, I would bear down on James Comey and I'd ask him first, you are under oath again, former Director Comey. 3 times you had to correct your testimony. By the way, if you and I had to do that, we could be facing jail.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
I only want to have to think about
tell the truth.
Well, and, okay, so he's already been before the Senate Judiciary Committee, and during that time, there was an interchange that people made a lot of note of. The fact that when he was pressed on whether someone had tried to interfere with him in this investigation, he said no. Now, some say he was only referring to the Justice Department. Others say, sounded more broadly, like that was an opening for him to say if he felt he was being pressured by anyone at any point with regard to this investigation. Do you think he'll be able to explain that away?
Well, he's going to have to try to explain it away, but I'll tell you this. If even what the president said was true, it would be a big bag of nothing. That is not obstruction of justice. That's not by threat or coercion. I mean, that doesn't rise to the high level of obstruction of justice. But I go back to what I said at the beginning. If James Comey really thought there was an obstruction case to be made, he had an obligation, not should have. He had an obligation to report that to the Department of Justice. He didn't do it. That's it. Case is closed right there. So, you know, he can testify. He better be very careful, by the way. He's under oath again. And maybe they'll give him another chance to correct his incorrect testimony if he does that. But he better be very careful on what he says here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody else would be in jail. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and thank you so much for watching.